Eala. The player tennis didn't see coming. She just outsold Serena Williams. Not in prize money, not in career trophies, in ticket demand on a random Wednesday night in a foreign country for days after winning her very first title. A 21-year-old from the Philippines forced 2 different tournament directors in 2 different countries to rip up their own schedules in the same week. That has not happened on the WTA Tour in 20 years. And it is still happening right now. So here's the question nobody in tennis wants to answer out loud. What do you do with a player whose ranking says one thing and whose box office says something completely different? Because right now, on the eve of the biggest hardcourt tournament left before the US Open, that exact question is sitting on the desk of tournament organizers in Cincinnati, Ohio, and how they answer it may end up shaping how every tournament on the calendar treats her for the rest of the year. We don't know their answer yet, but by the end of this video, you will understand exactly why this decision matters so much, and exactly what is riding on it. If you want to stay ahead of the story, because it is moving fast, and it is not slowing down, subscribe now and turn on notifications, because what happens over the next 2 weeks could define the rest of her season. Let's go back to where this actually started, because the speed of what's happened here is honestly hard to process. 7 months ago, in January, Alexandra Eala walked out for her first ever Grand Slam main draw match at the Australian Open. She took the opening set off Alicia Parks. Then Parks found her serve, cracked 12 aces, and closed it out in 3. Eala's Grand Slam debut ended quietly, in a locker room, with no press conference fanfare. Ranked outside the top 70 in the world, she was, at that point, a promising story. A talented kid. Nothing more than that, according to the rankings. 7 months later, she is the reason 2 different WTA tournaments in 2 different countries had to redraw their schedules in real time. Here is how fast this actually happened, and I want you to pay attention to the dates because the compression of this timeline is the entire story. On Monday, August 3rd, at the Mubadala DC Open in Washington, a rain-interrupted final that had to be finished a full day late, Eala beat world number 3 Jessica Pegula 4-6, 6-4, 6-love. Read that final set again. 6-love. Against the 3rd best player alive. In a title match, she won the last 9 games of the contest, dropping just 8 points in the entire 3rd set. Pegula had been chasing her 12th career title and her first of the season. She left with neither. That win didn't come out of nowhere. To get to that final, Eala had already dismantled defending champion Leylah Fernandez in straight sets, then beaten 2nd seed and former world number 3 Elina Svitolina for the 2nd time in a month, then knocked out 4-time Grand Slam champion Naomi Osaka in the semifinal. 3-seeded, decorated opponents in a row, capped by a comeback demolition of the world number 3. That is not a hot streak. That is a coronation. And it made her the first player in the history of the Philippines, man or woman, to win a WTA Tour singles title. She had exactly 1 day to enjoy it. 1 day between lifting that trophy in Washington and boarding a flight to Toronto for the National Bank Open, one of the biggest tournaments on the entire tennis calendar. She arrived exhausted, ranked a career-high number 20 in the world, riding the kind of momentum that usually takes years to build, not one rain-delayed weekend. And that's when things in Toronto got genuinely strange for tournament organizers. Eala had originally been slotted into Toronto's Grandstand Court, the tournament's 2nd biggest venue, with a capacity of 2,800 seats. On paper, for a player ranked just outside the top 20 coming off her first title, that's a completely defensible scheduling call. Totally normal. Nothing to see here. Except tickets for her matches did not sell like a normal number 20. They sold like a top 5 superstar. Tournament director Carl Hale went public about it, on the record, to Tennis Channel, and admitted the Grandstand Court simply could not hold the crowd Eala had already sold. His words, plainly. They probably couldn't put her there, because she'd likely already moved past 5,000 tickets for a venue that only seats 2,800. He moved her 2nd-round match to center court inside 24 hours. Then he kept her there for her 3rd round too. Now sit with that for a second because it is not a small statement. Hale has run the Canadian Open for more than 2 decades. He does not have to explain his scheduling to anyone, and he almost never reverses a call publicly. This week, he did both on camera, by name, admitting a rival's box office had physically outgrown his second-largest stadium. But the grandstand story isn't even the headline. The headline is what happened on Wednesday night. Eala's night session at Sobeys Stadium sold out completely. According to Tennis 365, the last time Toronto produced a Wednesday night sellout at the National Bank Open, it was driven by Serena Williams, during her absolute prime, roughly 2 decades ago. Let that sink in. A 21-year-old who didn't even own a signature win over a top-3 opponent 8 months ago is now being mentioned in the same sentence as prime Serena Williams. Not for her ranking, not for her titles, but for pure, unmanufactured ticket demand. And on that same night session, sharing the bill, was Canadian home favorite Leylah Fernandez, the very player Eala had just beaten en route to her Washington title. Fernandez playing in her own country, and organizers still built the night around Eala. For the Filipino fans who have been flying to Miami, packing the stands in Washington, and turning a Toronto Wednesday into what felt like a home game, this isn't a surprise to them. This is the rest of the world finally catching up to something they've known for over a year. Her run to the Miami Open semifinals back in the spring, taking down 3 separate Grand Slam champions along the way, was the first warning shot. Nobody outside her fan base was really listening yet. They're listening now. So here's where it gets genuinely interesting, and here's the part of the story that is still being written as you watch this. After Toronto, Eala's next stop is the Cincinnati Open, the last major hardcourt tune-up before the US Open, and this year, it's not just any Cincinnati Open. The tournament just finished a $260 million renovation of the Lindner Family Tennis Center, nearly doubling its number of courts and building a brand new sunken stadium court. It is being talked about as one of the best venues on tour right now. The 2026 edition runs from August 13th through the 23rd, and it will be the single largest test yet of whether tournament organizers have actually absorbed the lesson Washington and Toronto just taught them, or whether they're still scheduling by ranking sheet instead of by what's actually happening in the stands. Because make no mistake, this is now officially a pattern, not a one-off. 2 tournaments, 2 countries, 1 week, both forced to react to the same player. The Cincinnati Open hasn't released its schedule for Eala's matches yet, and until it does, nobody honestly knows what they're going to do. But if the pattern from Washington and Toronto holds, and it very well could, Cincinnati is about to face the exact same problem Carl Hale faced 4 days ago. A player whose ranking puts her in the 20s, but whose ticket sales are behaving like she's a top 5 seed. If they get the call right, they follow the 2 tournaments before them and build around her. If they get it wrong, they become the outlier, the only stop on this entire summer swing that didn't see it coming. And whatever Cincinnati decides is going to matter far beyond Ohio. The reason is what comes right after it. The US Open, the last Grand Slam of the season, gets underway in New York in the back half of August, and how a player is scheduled and promoted in the weeks leading into it can shape everything from court assignments to broadcast placement once the main draw begins. Every tournament left on the calendar this year, Cincinnati, then New York, then the Asian swing through Wuhan and Beijing, is effectively watching the same tape. Do you schedule Alexandra Eala by the number next to her name in the rankings, or by what's actually happening at the box office? Get that wrong even once, and you're the tournament people talk about the way we're all talking about Toronto's grandstand court right now. Because here's the bigger truth sitting underneath all of this. The WTA has genuinely never had to build around a Southeast Asian superstar of this scale before. This is uncharted territory for tournament directors. The Philippines has never had a WTA 1000 finalist, let alone a champion. If Eala goes deep in Cincinnati, on the biggest hard courts outside the slams, this doesn't just become another line on her resume. It becomes the moment Filipino tennis got its first real foothold on the sport's biggest stages. A foothold that, frankly, the country has been waiting generations for. And what makes this whole story land so hard is the timeline. 7 months. That's genuinely all it's been since a teenager was losing in the first round of her maiden Grand Slam. Alone in a locker room, trying to process a straight sets exit to a player ranked well above her. Standing in Toronto this week, freshly crowned as the first Filipina WTA champion in history, she described the last day and a half as something close to a blur. Still processing the fact that she'd actually done it, even as she was already looking ahead to her next match. No polished sound bite, just a young athlete who genuinely hasn't caught up to her own year yet. 2,800 seats versus more than 5,000 tickets sold. A Wednesday night sellout that hasn't happened in Toronto since prime Serena Williams. A world number 3 bageled in a title match third set. And now, a newly renovated $260 million tournament in Cincinnati about to find out, in real time, whether it's ready for a player whose fan base moves faster than her ranking does. The rankings are a lagging indicator. Right now, on the WTA Tour, Alexandra Eala is not. So here's your challenge before you go. Drop your prediction in the comments right now, before Cincinnati's order of play is even out. Does Cincinnati put her on a stage that matches the demand from the very first round, the way Toronto eventually did? Or do they wait, the way Toronto initially did, and get forced into a last-minute reversal? Timestamp your comment. Come back in 2 weeks and let's see who actually called it. And if you want to be locked in before the US Open seedings drop and before we find out how this Cincinnati story plays out, this is the channel to be subscribed to for it. Hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you in the comments.